Welcome back to Torsos of Desire, written and read by me, Nicole Beckley. This is episode 9, where I'll be reading pages 172 through 190. We are getting so close to the end. A quick recap of what happened to get us here. The narrator decided that Diego can't be the face of Buckwild, and she tried to take it up with her bosses, but when that didn't work, she showed up at CJ Carlson's house. Guess who was there? Diego. This guy just won't quit. CJ Carlson threw her out, but she ran into Jackie Langmore and talked up Paul. Without a place to live, the narrator stayed at Sophie's apartment and got her connected to the cute barista. You're welcome. But that good deed didn't keep her from getting fired or running into her ex, Jonathan. So now she's really in a bind, which is where we left off. Unearthed. Sometimes in life you have to do things you swore you'd never do again, like a little cocaine, or calling up your old temp agency and begging for literally any job they had, except for any ones where you had to teach children. Let the children figure out stuff for themselves. I didn't want Paul to get back from the funeral and find out I didn't have a job, or a place to live, or that I'd been labeled a dilettante. Seriously, what is that? Maybe he meant debutante, that would make more sense, but it's still not a good reason to fire somebody. The temp agency said most of their jobs right now were in waste management, and did I have any experience with that? I told them I was familiar with all kinds of diets, even the ones that medical research warned against. Plus, I knew a lot of personal trainers. They're easy to meet if you walk around parks early in the morning. The temp agency said no waste management like trash or human refuse. Oh, I didn't have any direct experience, but who was I to refuse? They'd already hung up. Ah well, my heart wasn't in it anyway. I tried to daydream about what I might want to do, like being a boat captain. I wanted something with authority where I could also wear a hat. But time was running out and I was about to see Paul. I'd just have to suck it up and tell him I lost my job and that we wouldn't be working together. I arrived at Paul's place and steeled myself. I imagined myself as a long piece of steel anchored into the ground. Which reminded me, didn't I have something buried around here? That's right, those cursed earrings. I'd put them in the park for safekeeping or until the curse wore off. I wonder if it'd been enough time. It's so hard to tell with curses. I dug around the nearest tree until my fingers hit something hard and I pulled out a little box. There they were. Here goes nothing, I thought, and put them on. Luckily, I didn't immediately melt or get into a body swap situation, so they seemed safe. For now. I knocked on Paul's door and he must have just taken a shower because he emerged into the bright light of the open doorway with his hair dripping wet and his skin glistening. He looked like a Roman god, or a Greek god, or whichever ones wore sandals. He smiled wide, and the next thing I knew, he'd lifted me into his arms and was carrying me into his house. "I've missed you," he said. I kissed the base of his neck and told him I'd missed him too. I mean, with those forearms, who wouldn't? We made it into the living room, but before Paul set me down, he stopped. "Hey, are those earrings the one I brought you from Alaska?" he said. I nodded. "I've never seen you wear them before. It means a lot that you like them," he said. Suddenly I regretted not wearing them earlier, especially because they seemed to motivate Paul to need to undress me. Maybe this was the kind of curse I'd been waiting for. He unbuttoned my blouse and I ran my hand down the length of his torso. His muscles tightened and he pulled our bodies close. I wanted to close my eyes, but I also wanted to see everything. His body was crazy. We made love on the living room floor, and I was glad Paul had such padded carpet. I really needed to get some carpet like this. Oh, and a place to live. We lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling. Man, even his ceiling was nice. It wasn't leaking or anything. Paul told me he'd done a lot of thinking while he was in Boston, and that going to a funeral really made him value being alive. The sex probably helped too. Paul gently stroked my hair. "Do you have to go back to your place?" he asked. "Actually," I said, and proceeded to explain how I'd had a falling out with Karen because she was being dumb and stupid. "Isn't that redundant?" Paul asked. "You'd think so," I said. "You have to make things right with her," Paul said. "What? Why? I wasn't the one acting childish. You're both acting childish." "Exactly. I wasn't the only one." Paul said that at his great-uncle's funeral, people had had a lot of regrets about things they hadn't done or said, and now it was too late. "You don't want to go to the grave with ill will," Paul said. I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon, but I did want my curling irons back. "She's your best friend. You have to straighten things out," Paul said. "Oh, and my straightener. Darn it. I liked it better when Paul was just a sex object and not somebody who was going to make me a better person. Fine. I told Paul maybe we should just quickly roleplay like we were dying and this might be our last time together. He laughed, but then he took a moment and said the last thing I wanted to hear. Wait, where's Jose Canseco? Plans in motion. I assured Paul I'd put his cat in a safe place for safekeeping and I'd return him as soon as I could. Paul made a kind of grimace, but it might have just been indigestion. That's the cause of most grimaces. I'd gotten so caught up in telling Paul about the Karen thing I didn't even mention the not having a job thing. It's weird how your focus shifts when an incredibly hot person starts encouraging you. I told Paul that if I was going to apologize, then the prime apologizing opportunity was coming up because Karen and Bernard were having an engagement party, and he should definitely go with me, and maybe I should watch him try on some slacks just to see what they might look like on. I love a private fashion show. He said he had to go to work, so we agreed we'd meet at the restaurant and he'd wear the slacks then. Plus, he was kind of insistent that I find Jose Canseco and bring him home. Dudes and their cats. It's like they don't want you just leaving their cats at other people's houses. Like it's a big deal. I called Sophie and made her promise to drop the cat off, even though she said he could stay as long as he liked. Besides, I had bigger problems to solve. If I was going to get a new job, I needed to ride the phones or pound the pavement. It used to be so much easier when you just walk into a store and they'd hand you a broom and say, "Start sweeping." That's how I worked at that German bakery, though I never really knew what they were saying. I don't speak German. I was running out of ideas, but then I remembered something I read once, that the key to career success is networking, and I knew the perfect place to network: Karen and Bernard's engagement party. The engagement party. There are two types of engagement parties, the ones you want to go to and the ones you don't want to go to because somebody kicked you out of the house and made you wander the streets. Sometimes you have to put your feelings aside in order to use the situation for career networking. Paul met me at Vinny's Ancient Steakhouse. It's one of those places where you just know the meat is going to be old. Paul looked great. The slacks did not disappoint. A lot of men don't realize the value of well-fitting slacks. He also wore a suit jacket with an orange blossom in the pocket. He was dressed in a way that made me want to undress him. Perfect. Shall we? Paul offered his arm and opened the door to the restaurant like a suave gentleman. Inside, the restaurant was dimly lit with so many candles that it had to be the biggest fire hazard in Little Italy. And that's saying something. They have a lot of coal-fired ovens. I was surprised to see so many people packed into the small space. Who knew Karen or Bernard were that popular? "This is quite a crowd," Paul said. Okay, so I wasn't the only one who noticed. I took a closer look around. There were at least 8 men with tiny mustaches who I'd never seen before. If they were Bernard's friends, I was going to have to talk to him about getting some better friends. "Huh," Paul said. "Those guys look a lot like the guys who used to hang around the Goldenrod." "The male strip club?" "No, the bar where a lot of illegal sports betting used to happen. It got raided and shut down last year." These weren't exactly the kind of people I was looking to network with, but they did look like the sort of people who know people. Before I could strike up a conversation with one of them, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see a radiant Karen throwing her arms around me. This was not what I was expecting. I was expecting some high-level drama, maybe even a glass of wine to be thrown at me. Instead, Karen planted a kiss on my cheek and clasped my hand in hers. I would have preferred thrown wine. She said that she and Bernard had had a long talk, and he made her realize she'd been too harsh on me. Darn it, was Bernard going to make me like him? Karen said she was happy to bury the hatchet if I was, and I said that was fine. Hatchets are too dangerous to leave out in the open anyway. She hugged me again and said it was all settled, and then she turned to say hi to someone else before I could even suggest that she grovel a little bit for being so mean. I didn't know what to make of this. Was Karen feeling empowered just because she was having a super-packed engagement party surrounded by friends and family and men with mustaches? How dare she act like this when I was supposed to be the one being a bigger person? I was thinking of what I could do to psychologically undermine her when I noticed that Paul was across the room giving me come-hither glances. They were the kind of glances you had no choice but to come hither to. I made my way toward Paul, and he pulled me in close to whisper in my ear. "Hey," he said. "Hi." I tugged his shirt collar. "I think these mustache men are bad news." They certainly didn't seem like good news. Paul leaned in. I heard one of them talking, and before he could finish, a siren went off. People dropped their drinks. Conversation stopped. Suddenly a half-dozen police officers rush in. Man, Karen and Bernard were even more popular than I thought. "Everybody stay where you are," one of the police officers said. This caused everybody to immediately lunge for their coats and scattered toward the exits. They weren't following directions at all. The police officers tried to block them and yelled for everybody to get up against the walls. I looked around the room to try to spot Karen. She was turned around, being escorted out the door by one of the officers. I had to run after her. I jumped over a couple that was kneeled on the ground and navigated around tables of food. I didn't even stop for a breadstick. Finally, I caught up to Karen as a couple more officers surrounded her. "Hey," I said. Karen turned and we locked eyes. "Great party," I said. That'd show her. Prime suspect. "Do you know this person?" The police looked at Karen, who just glared at me. "All right, you're coming with us." The police officers put me in the car with Karen and drove us to the nearest police station. They told us they were bringing us in for questioning, which was good because I had a lot of questions. They shuffled us into a small room and asked me what I was doing at Vinny's Ancient Steakhouse. I told them I was there for some light networking. I still needed to get the word out about my job search. They asked what I meant by networking, and I explained how sometimes when you're looking to move forward in your career, it's important to meet a lot of people because they might know about job opportunities. They said that they knew what networking was, but why was I doing it at this particular party? I told them that it wasn't ideal, but my options were pretty limited right now. "It's okay, Stan," one of the officers said to another. "She obviously doesn't know anything." Rude. The officers explained that there had been some shady business going down at Vinny's and that they believed the party tonight was providing cover for some backroom dealings. Karen looked shocked. She hadn't said a word this whole time. Maybe Paul had been right. Those mustache men were up to no good. One of the officers slid a photograph across the table. "Does this man look familiar?" Karen nodded. It was Richard, Karen's high school crush who I'd been pretending to be for a while but had completely forgotten about. Karen explained that they'd reconnected recently online and that he'd helped her get a discount on the party space rental. I hoped it was a really good discount. "He was likely using the party as a distraction," one of the officers said. "Sure, but aren't all parties a distraction?" The bigger issue to me was that Karen had been talking to Richard in the first place when she was about to marry Bernard. "I thought you and Bernard were making all your decisions together," I said. Karen looked sheepish. Bernard probably couldn't argue with a discount. "I just always felt like Richard and I had something," Karen said. "And I wanted to see what was there before it was too late." I shook my head. Just before her wedding, a woman reaches out to a former crush and ends up being a pawn in his illegal business dealings. Karen had been playing with fire. Just like the Jackie Langmore book, Playing with Fire. Plot-wise, it was very similar. "If Richard is guilty of what we think he is, he'll be going away for a long time," one of the officers said. I wondered if they could do this for all former lovers. That could really come in handy with a couple of my exes. The officers said we were free to go, so I texted Paul to meet us. Karen sat down with her head in her hands. I could tell that she was going to need me to console her, even if I didn't really want to. I reminded her that until the raid, it had been a really nice party, and I told her to forget about Richard. Besides the whole criminal thing, judging by the picture, it didn't look like he was aging that well. "What about Bernard?" she said. I told her Bernard seemed to be aging great, and that they were perfect together, and he would probably never use her as a cover for something illegal. Say what you will, but Bernard was no criminal mastermind. Karen gave me a hug and held on so long I wished I wasn't quite so good at consoling. Up in flames. While Karen and I embraced, something caught my eye. The police were dragging someone into the station who looked very familiar. It was Diego! My mouth dropped open. His long hair was cascading down his neck, and his deep V-neck shirt exposed his muscular chest, adorned with metal chains. He looked like the ultimate bad boy. You know, one that's being arrested. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Arson charges," one of the police officers said. "Alleged arson charges," Diego said. "No, the charges are real," the officer said. "Why are you here?" Diego shot me a naughty look. Even in a situation like this, he looked like he was up to no good. I told him we were there for an after party, and he nodded like he was impressed. But my mind started racing. If Diego got arrested for arson, CJ Carlson was going to have an even bigger problem than just genital herpes. Just as the police started to take Diego's fingerprints, Paul burst in. "Thank goodness you're okay," he said. He rushed up, took me in his arms, and kissed me. His thumbs grazed the sides of my cheeks, and he brushed the hair out of my face. My heart leapt in my chest. I couldn't believe Paul had been so worried about me. It was very sexy. Plus, of all the places I'd been kissed, a police station had surprisingly never been one. I started to explain to Paul that he'd been right about the party being full of shady characters when he caught sight of Diego. He clenched his jaw and opened his eyes wide, with a sort of fire I'd only seen once or twice before. "What's he doing here?" Paul said. "Arson charges," a woman's voice said. Everybody in the room turned around to see a woman in a crimson dress standing at the door to the police station. It was Jackie Langmore. That woman really knew how to make an entrance. "Baby!" Diego shouted. "Don't baby me," Jackie said. "This man almost killed my mother." "But then I saved her," Diego said. That's what we'd seen on the news. Diego rescuing Jackie's mother from a burning building. "It's not a rescue if you're the one who started the fire," Jackie said. "You can't prove that," Diego said. Jackie reached into her purse and produced a small thumb drive. The police officers immediately grabbed it and turned their computer monitors so everyone could see. It was grainy security footage, but you could clearly see Diego trying to juggle 2 fire sticks. He was about as good at this as he was at playing bass. Very bad. He threw one high into the air, and it got stuck on a balcony ledge. He started to try to scale the side of the building and then inexplicably threw the other fire stick up onto the balcony. "Why did you do that?" one of the police officers asked. "I figured when I got up there the sticks would both be together," Diego said. "Unfortunately, the nearby window was open and the curtains caught fire," Jackie explained, which then spread to the entire building. "And that's my fault?" Diego asked. "Yes," all the police officers and Jackie said in unison. Karen poked me in the ribs. "Shouldn't his lawyer be present?" Karen said. "Not now, Karen. This was just getting good." I told Karen she should probably mind her own business since she'd recently been implicated in some illegal dealings. The police officers said they needed to take Diego into holding and do some paperwork. Nothing makes you lose interest in a high-profile arson arrest quicker than the mention of paperwork. They escorted Diego down the hall. "I'll still be thinking about you," Diego called to Jackie. Then he gave me a wink. "You too." Say what you will, but this guy's confidence game was off the charts. "What was that about?" Paul looked at me. I shrugged like I didn't know what he was talking about. "I knew that was a bad dude," Paul said. "It's about time he gets his just desserts." Actually, dessert sounded pretty good right now. Karen's party had been raided before they could bring out the cake. But I remembered what I was supposed to be doing. Networking. "Jackie," I called. "Have you met my boyfriend, Paul?" Jackie turned and sashayed over, tossing her head back before extending her hand with a curtsy. She was really turning on the charm. Paul took her hand and she looked him over from head to toe. It didn't hurt that he was still wearing those slacks. "I've seen you somewhere before," she said. Paul's cheeks started to flush. Is there anything cuter than a stud who's slightly embarrassed at being a stud? There's not. I reminded Jackie that I'd shown her a few pictures. Jackie said that she definitely remembered. Not only that, the resurgent sales of Farmer's Tan had kicked one of her novels off the bestseller list, so she understood Paul's body could sell some books. Paul shot me a wide smile, and I had to restrain myself from wrapping my limbs around him and climbing onto the police officer's desk. They'd definitely get mad if we messed up their paperwork. "Let's get you on a cover," Jackie said. Opportunities. Now that the air was clear between me and Karen, she'd agreed to take me back in, at least on a temporary basis until she and Bernard started trying. I told her if she hadn't really been trying, that would explain a lot about her life. She said she meant trying to have a baby. I hadn't taken Karen for the motherly type, but can you ever really know a person? I was just glad to have a roof over my head and a floor beneath my feet. You'd be amazed at how many New York apartments don't have floors. I hadn't exactly solved my job situation, but Bernard said he knew a bunch of club promoters who always needed help. I'd met a few club promoters. The kind of help they needed probably required professionals. I started to decline, but Karen said I shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. Gross. Who's looking into horses' mouths? Fine, I said. Where do I go? Bernard gave me an address and told me to go sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. At least the hours already seemed flexible. Club Mystique. Have you ever been someplace where the bass was so loud you could feel it in your liver? That's how it was at Club Mystique. It was one of those places where they wanted the music to give you an out-of-body experience, which sounded pretty good because there were a lot of other bodies trying to rub up against you. I located the club promoter, Joey Pinocchio. He looked just like Bernard described him, a slime ball with a good heart. He was wearing big diamond earrings and intermittently texting on 3 different phones. You could tell this guy meant business. At least one of those phones had to be a business phone. I told him I was here for the big promoting gig. He handed me a stack of flyers and told me to put them on every car windshield in a 3-block radius. Easy. I could do that in my sleep, which was good because I was a little sleepy. Any questions? He said. Yeah, how'd you get the name Joey Pinocchio? Wouldn't you like to know? He said. I would. That's exactly why I asked. Some guys just never want to open up about themselves. After I'd flyered all the cars and scooters in the area, I went down a dark path. Mentally. Also physically. A couple of the streetlights were out. All I had to guide me was the sound of scurrying street rats and random fireworks. It made me miss the comforts of the office. Even if the designers insisted on playing their dumb classical music, at least we got to work indoors. I took a good long look at my surroundings. I sighed dramatically, but no one was even around to notice. Though I'd done an expert job flyering, maybe this wasn't the professional opportunity I was searching for. Now that Paul had the promise of Jackie's cover, I knew I should come clean with him about losing my job. But I didn't want him to think I was someone who lost things. I still had my pride. Somewhere. I was just about to call it a night and eat a piece of street pizza when I saw him. The magician. He was wearing a slim, dark suit and a ruffled white shirt. Sure, he looked professional, but this was a man who'd accidentally killed a lot of doves. He saw me and gasped. I knew you'd reappear eventually, he said. They always do. Except for Gloria. May she rest in peace. Hey, George, I said, because that was his name. I briefly worked as his assistant years ago. He wasn't the type of magician that would pull a quarter from behind your ear, but he would take the cash out of your wallet. George said he just performed a magic show for 200 traveling Dutch business people. Great crowd. Didn't speak a word of English. Loved every minute of it. He was always providing brief reviews of his own shows. He asked me what I was doing out on the street at this time of night. I told him I was just contemplating my existence and my place in the universe and if any of it mattered, and also getting the word out about Club Mystique. You can get $10 off entry with this flyer, I said. Huh. Sounds like you're going through something, George said. Same thing happened to me before I discovered magic. Yeah, magic was great, but it was all smoke and mirrors. And honestly, not enough mirrors for my taste. You need to find something that challenges and fulfills you, that could keep you up all night thinking about it, but that also makes you want to get up in the morning. George was obviously speaking in riddles. Who wants to get up in the morning? This is why magicians only hang out with other magicians. I told George that sounded great, but what about the whole cash, scratch, green, dinero situation? If you find something you love to do, the money will follow, George said. People always say that, but I've never made a dime from taking a long bath or plotting revenge or getting a manicure. Close your eyes, George said. Oh no, I wasn't falling for that. Not after all the times he'd made me wriggle into some case made to look like the Empire State Building or squeeze into a mini-scale replica of the Statue of Liberty. He did a lot of shows for tourists. You have to see a vision of your future. You have to picture it, he said. Fine, I closed my eyes. But all I could see was a burst of white light behind my closed eyelids. The streetlights must have come back on. Then I did see something. It was an immense walk-in closet with shelves of heels and suede booties and racks of chiffon dresses and ruffled skirts and probably at least one pair of jeans that will definitely fit again someday. They're in every closet. But what was this supposed to mean? I opened my eyes and turned to George, but he was gone. And so was my change purse. Damn, every time. This has been section 9 of Torsos of Desire, read by the author Nicole Beckley and produced by Nicole Beckley. The music is from Blue Dot Sessions. Tune in to the next episode to find out how this all ends.